wanted to point out something that I did on this piece that probably is a very good technique. When you're cutting scroll saw pieces, you want to try to keep the strength of the pieces as much as possible while you're cutting to prevent breaking pieces out. Now, I haven't broken this piece yet, and I'm going to be careful enough that I don't think I will. But something I did here is I went ahead and cut this large interior piece out, which left this butterfly right here hanging a little bit with not a whole lot holding on to it. So as you're moving this piece through the blade now, you want to be careful that your fingers are always looking for some place to hold on to. And if I reach up here and grab this butterfly right now as I'm turning, I've got a real good possibility of breaking this butterfly off. So I'm going to have to be careful while I cut the rest of this pattern. What I should have done is went ahead and cut all these smaller exterior pieces out first, and then moved on into the center where this larger section was that I cut out. Wasn't paying very good attention there, but something that I can point out to you, and maybe you won't make the same mistake. So we'll just have to be a little careful while we're cutting out the rest of this piece. I've finished cutting the decoration out of the front of the clock now, and I'm going to go ahead and begin the cutout of the frame that will go around this decoration. I haven't made up my mind yet whether I'm going to use this frame. It sounded like a good idea when I was doing the pattern, but after I get it cut out, I'll lay it on there and see what I think about it. You could go either way with it. It's definitely optional, but I'm going to go ahead and begin the cut on the frame now. I've begun cutting out the frame, and I've designed this pattern with a lot of right angles. So I would recommend, after I've started this, for you to go ahead and cut this frame, even if you decide not to use it on the clock, because by the time you finish cutting this out, you're definitely going to have a lot of practice on cutting right angles. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, but this is actually a fairly difficult piece to cut right. So go ahead and cut one of these out. It'll be great practice for you. If it doesn't end up turning out looking as good as you like, you can always get rid of it, but there's definitely some good practice in what looks like a very simple little piece. When you come to these angles, just go ahead and make your turn. Don't fidget with it too much, or you'll definitely end up having a problem. Once you make that turn, you're going to have to learn to stop that cut. So this is a complicated piece to cut, much more complicated than it looked in the pattern, and more complicated than I expected it to be. But a lot of right angles here. Definitely going to take a little practice to get this piece to look right. Show you something I've done that might be a little easier to cut this piece out. I'm not real happy with the way I cut this end of it. It's not, the details aren't real sharp like you'd like to see them. So I've done something here that might help a little bit, and we'll give this a try. When I got to this end, I just went ahead and cut along the top of the little arrows, and I'm going to go back in and make these individual cuts one at a time. I'm actually going to go in and cut and back out, go back in and cut until I get the pieces cut out. See if we can get a little sharper look this way. I'll go ahead and zoom back out here in a second once I get this blade tension, and we'll try this cut this way and see if this doesn't help a little bit. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but I'm actually going to go set my tension. I'm going to go in and cut these little points out one at a time like this. Go ahead and take this down to this corner, let that piece come off. Go ahead and back in like this. I'll go ahead and make this turn. And then when I come back out, I've got a fairly sharp piece. Now I can start back up at the top of that point again and do the same thing. It's probably is the way this piece should be cut. So this is definitely a complicated piece to get cut all in one line. So I'm going to go through and nibble these pieces out, see if this end doesn't show up a little better or look a little better when I get back. I want to show you a technique here that I found pretty useful for occasionally you go to remove your pattern from the wood and the tape will come off, but some of the paper from the pattern will be left on the wood. You'll get these pieces. And I've seen various ways of getting these off. Most of the time, if you are careful, you can pull them right off. But in this case, I left a little bit on here, especially intentionally, actually, just to show you this technique. I picked up this heat gun, which is usually used for, I think, removing stripping paint and things like that. But picked this up at Harbor Freight for, I think, like $19. It was really cheap. And what I'll do is go ahead and turn this on the highest setting and apply this heat to this paper. And once you get this heat built up in this wood a little bit, this paper will usually just peel right off. Seen other techniques where people will use mineral spirits or just damp a rag with mineral spirits and rub it off. I've seen people try to sand them off. Lots of techniques for getting this off, but if you ever get some stubborn pieces, this seems to work pretty well. Just get a couple of the corners really warmed up real good, and once you get them good and hot, sometimes you might even need a scraper depending on the size of the pattern, and you can see it's just going to literally just peel right off right there where we got it hot without any trouble at all. And again, over here we may have to warm it up just a little bit on this piece along through here, and once we get it warm enough, it'll come off and not leave a lot of glue residue on the wood blank. Just another little trick, you'll see literally dozens of different ways to get the pattern off. I know a lot of people apply the paper part of the pattern over the top of the box tape, which obviously keeps you from having this problem also. This is just the way I've always done it. Now just a little sandpaper over the top of that will remove the rest of the glue residue, and you've got a perfectly clean piece of wood there. I went ahead and just laid the border for this cutout on here to try to make up my mind if I'm going to use it or not. And now that I've got it cut out and got it laying on here, I think I do like it, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this to the wood after we get it cut up or get it finished. So at this point we've got all the scroll saw work done. Now it's just a matter of finishing the product. So I'm going to go ahead and glue these up and let them set aside and be drying while I go ahead and cut the top and bottom at the table saw. Take those pieces to the router and put a little decorative trim on them, and then we should be ready for a little finish. I've got the clock box all glued up and clamped up, and we're going to set it aside and let it dry for probably 30 minutes to an hour while I go ahead and finish the top and bottom. Here's the finished clock. Put a little finish on it. I did go ahead and put the border on it, installed the clock. I had a couple of little changes that I think might look nice. I went ahead and made the top piece so that it was removable. I put in this little square piece right here. Let me get it down here where you can see it. I installed this on it, and what I intend to do is after this dries real good, I'm going to put this little dyed light on it, and I think I'll go ahead and back the design with some colored glass, and that way when we reinstall it with the light on, it should give a pretty nice look with the pattern back there. Anyway, there's the finished pattern. Hope you enjoy this one, and come back and look for more videos at www.scrollsawworkshop.blogspot.com.